We're off to a weird one today, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to go get my hair cut. So, alright, I know you've all been watching, being like, when the fuck is he going to cut that hair? It's today. The hairdresser I'm going to is a bit grotty as well, so I'm like, I'm going to the hairdressers, I'm going to get my hair cut, come back, I'll have a shower, and then I'm going to get into work. I've already done like a little bit of work this morning. I didn't go for my walk this morning because I was driving Laura to, she had a meeting at an office that isn't her normal office, and it would have been a pain in the ass to get to. So I drove her, so I did an hour of work of emails and stuff, took her, I'm now back, need to go get some cash, hairdressers, may as well like bash it all out in the morning, you know what I mean? And then hit the ground rolling this afternoon, boy. But this mop desperately needs cutting, so let's go sort that out. It really bugs me that I can't find a good haircut for like a tenner. I feel like a tenner is the right price to have your hair cut, you know? Like, that's a significant hourly rate wage, if you consider that as like a £1 per hour basis. It doesn't take long. Why is it always more than a tenner? And I mean, it's £11, but I mean, it's not a very good haircut, and it's grotty at best. There's one nearby that's like £15, which is too much for a subpar job. The best one is like £13, but it's in town, so it takes me like an hour and a half round trip. And then once you've included either parking or like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's not £13 once you consider travel and time. It just bugs me. I'm still on the hunt for a good hairdresser nearby, you know? Otherwise, I am just making myself a hot water bottle and a cup of tea for my afternoon. I've been working through lunch, which is why I'm having a cup of tea so early. To be honest with you, it's kind of thrown me off course a little bit. But I spend so much time like out of the house, getting a haircut and driving Laura around, that I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna make the most of the day. And I say I worked through lunch, like I was writing emails. I've finished all of my emails now, I'm just about to send them all. And then we're gonna get into some programming. I need to get my images built in properly. And then I can worry about parameterizing everything so that I can get all the data in. But while I was doing that, I watched Doctor Who episode last night, the one with Captain Jack Harkness in it. It came back, spoiler alert. I mean, the series is probably finished by the time you're watching this, boys. And it was actually good, and you know why it was good? It was because the bloody companions got out of the way. Like, there's too many chuffing companions, and they're all irritating. Like, so you just don't get, like, the character development. And I know that's fucking pompous as out to say, but like, you don't get the same, you don't buy into any individual one of them. If one of them died, I don't give a fuck. Because there's 3 of them, you know? But they like all got out of the way effectively, so it was an alright fucking episode. I mean, it still wasn't like up to old DT times, or even MS times, boys. But that's it's just the way it is, isn't it, really? Speaking of you watching these videos as well, I've rendered out a couple of videos. I just rendered out the Christmas Day one. I need to get that uploaded. So as soon as that's uploaded, I'll be about a month behind. Fuck me. But I mean, that is a 10-day episode. That is a heifer. So a good couple of those like that means catching up is relatively trivial. I've just got to do it, you know. We have a fun couple of days, ladies and gentlemen. We have quite a lot of emails to write this week, just effectively as like the timings have all laid out. This week I've got a few new emails to send, a couple of like relatively chunky, longer emails to send for like the 3rd email and the 4th email and all that kind of stuff. So it's good. We've got a lot of shit going down. It's going to be a fun couple of days, boys. God damn it, man. I'm trying to do authentication with Azure services. And I hate working on things that are related to security, including authentication, because it doesn't tell you why it won't work. Often because it can't, but also for security reasons. So I've created a service principal, which, because I just made it, has complete access to everything in Azure. Under my account, that is, but basically everything, right? Should we spin up a Docker container and log into that, right? So I log into the Azure CLI using those credentials. Happy days. I then try and interact with Azure Blob Storage using the credentials that you use to talk to Blob Storage. So its own access qualifiers that work for all the apps. They work. They're just like guaranteed to work. Happy days. So there's no reason from a permission standpoint that I wouldn't be able to talk to it, and I'm using the correct username and password, but use effective username and password. Authentication failure. This may be caused by either an invalid account key, which it isn't, connection string, which I'm not using, or SAS value provided for your storage account. And I can't figure out why. I've literally gone through and rebuilt all of these things from scratch. So it's not like I've flicked a setting somewhere. Is it normal to get emails and then like be scared to open them? Like, I get an email, I see it's from someone that I've emailed and I want to see their response. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to open it though. Is that weird? I'm really happy with like the general response rate of the emails I'm sending. No, well, I mean, with the exception of some meetings that are getting planned in, no like incredibly like positive feedback or like, you know what I mean, or like valuable response, but a lot of it's very interesting. So I'm learning, that's all that's important, and every single email, every single response goes some way to doing some level of validation or verification that I'm on or not on the correct path. So I've had a little bit of a step away from work, just a tad to respond to said email and to like just like chill out for a little bit. I'm coming in with a fresh head. I figured out what I need to check. One of the potential variables that isn't working, but we'll get there. We'll see. Let's go. Do you want to have a guess what the issue was for my authentication woes? It wasn't what I thought it was. It was a complete curveball. So the Docker container, the time in the Docker container had slipped by about 2 days, which explains why it worked and then didn't work. And then worked on my laptop, but then didn't work on Atlas. And then, you know? And then I did something to my laptop, tried it this morning, didn't work. I know why. The reason is because when you sleep your machine, I sleep my laptop, sleep Atlas, or turn them off, you need to reboot Docker, otherwise the time slips in the containers. That's why it also works in the cloud and not locally, because the cloud is constantly refreshing and re-employing the thing. FML, man, you don't even want to know how much time I've lost to that fucker. God damn. That is legitimately about, well, in fact, I'll have a number. Where's my time? We're talking nearly 8 hours I lost to that shit. I can't tell you how frustrating that is, man. It's so like, fuck's sake. Well, anyway, now I've got that sorted. Everything works now, so all I need to do is invoke the pipeline scripts that I generated the other day, which I can now happily download. Now I've figured out my authentication issues. Happy days. But I'm actually going to move the point where I download it somewhere else. So I'm going to move it into the initial snapshot image generation, so that, oh, I was on a bus. Snapshot image generation. I could download it now, but I feel like that's just unnecessary. I feel like it could be downloaded in a snapshot relatively easily. But yeah, god damn it, mate. The plus side is, at least I now understand how the authentication stuff works. Like, I've read on the whole bloody blog posts and everything. I know it much better now. So, it's just real annoying. So I need to make some changes to my initial snapshot generation. I've got an itchy ear, boy. And I need to make some modifications to this then after the fact to do it. Right, my god. I made the mistake of utilising yesterday as my like, I'm gonna wear all my warm clothes day. So I wore like my nice long sleeve t-shirt, I got my nice like fleecy, not pyjama bottoms, but like jogging bottoms on, things that Laura got me for Christmas. And today, it's like 10 degrees colder. Otherwise, though, we have kind of an odd day today. We have a networking event tonight, but it's not in town. It's actually near here. I'll be driving there. But I also have meetings tomorrow that are relatively daunting and terrifying. So I'm basically prepping for tomorrow. I'm going to be out the house for basically all morning, and I won't get back until like towards the afternoon, because I'm doing a couple of like networking things and having lunch with some friends in Bath. So today's like kind of prepping for that. I've done all of the emails that I want to send for today, and most of the kind of like, so when I before I send the initial email, I write the follow-up email because that goes up in 2 days time. So I've done all of that stuff. I now need to kind of try and get ahead of tomorrow. This is weird though, because like I'm going to be able to work quite a bit. So like I should at least, at worst, get an hour of work done tomorrow on my laptop. But like I say, all the things that need to happen tomorrow. So I need to get ahead of the curve on that one. So I need to write some more emails. I need to prep for my meetings. It's one of those days. I'm hoping to be able to be like kind of fully prepped, basically at the point where everything I'm doing tomorrow can just almost be automated. At that point, I will then focus on doing some development stuff. Now I've got like a bit of a roadmap and a working plan. Now I know that I made just dumb errors. So, god damn it. But yeah, so it's one of those days today. Right, proper losing the will to live here, boys. So let's get on to some of the stuff, my man. I've got all my emails drafted, ready to rock and roll. Should I send them before lunch? It's probably not best. So I'm going to get on to planning out the next step for my other stuff. Figuring out the best place to inject the script, whether or not it's at this stage, which involves kind of passing that information a bit further than you'd usually expect, I think, or whether I go back a stage and whack it into the initial snapshot step. That's where I'm at, boys. Right then, boys, my mind is starting to wander a little bit, so I'm going to go for a slightly earlier walk. I don't know why I've like set myself on going for walks at 4. Kind of like arbitrarily set the times you would normally commute to work as like the times I commute to work for my walks. But I should just go when I feel like I need to go, you know, and go for 2 walks instead. Well, no, always go for 2 walks, but then effectively just go when it makes sense to go. It's still bloody freezing out though. Still as cold as it was this morning. My God. It's coming up to bedtime, ladies and gentlemen. Back from the old networking thing. Oh, god damn it. I'm actually going to deprioritise going to those meetups. Even though it's like the first meetup I ever went to. They're only really interesting from like a developer standpoint, and that's just like not valuable enough effectively. Otherwise they're a bit too hit and miss on like how good it is. If there's a topic that's really, really interesting, I'll go to it. But I used to effectively go to all of them. And now with like all the other stuff that I do as well now, it's giving me less value back than I think it needs to in order to justify spending the time. I mean, it wasn't so bad this time because it was literally a 15-minute drive away rather than like the full go into town, spend an hour kicking around and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was relatively interesting. There was a guy there, an architect from Stack Overflow. That talk was good. But yeah, otherwise, I'm going to bed now. Up early, leaving early tomorrow. Got to commute to Bath. Meeting's at 9, but obviously I want to get there comfortably, so I'm going to try and get there for 8. That's the plan. It's going to be a fun day. It's going to be a long day. It's going to be fun. I'm not nervous yet, and I'm not sure it's because it hasn't sunk in yet. Right, so we're in Bath. We're waiting. Well, I'm in the car park above Bath, waiting for the bus to get in. In my usual spot as well, living the dream. God damn it. I'm super early again. I should be about, well, I say super early. Should get into the city centre about half an hour early, which gives me half an hour to kill before my meeting at 9. I am a bit nervous now. I kind of knew I would be at this point, but effectively, this is just like a job interview, except I'm interviewing two people that are better than me. I'm talking to the CEO and the CTO of a relatively big and like, well, not big, but well-known good consultancy that's geared towards startups. And I'm talking to them to gauge whether or not I'm on the right path with the products and services I'm building at Varialis. So RadSpider predominantly, but also kind of the consultancy side. I'm trying to figure out whether or not quality is wanted in the environment, in like the marketplace, whether or not there's a market for quality, and whether companies are willing to pay extra for it, and how you then sell that, you know? I figured out, like, basically, like I say, this is a job interview. So I'm kind of going in and interviewing them about how they work. Towards the end, I'll tell them about what I'm doing. And I'm just like, just gonna keep it as informal as out. I didn't plan out job interviews when I interviewed people. I've done probably more research for this than I have for any interview I've ever been to. And anyone I've ever interviewed as well. So it's gonna be fine. I'm looking forward to it. It's that thing where, like, until you get started, I'm nervous. Right, yeah, I was right to not be too daunted by that. It was a really good meeting. Really nice guys I was talking to as well. Really, really interesting. It went really well, but not good, if that makes sense. Like, the outcome couldn't really be worse. But it was a good meeting, you know? Wi-Fi isn't working at the library, so I can't get any like meaningful work done, and I have two lunch dates in an hour and 2 hours respectively. So I think I'm going for a walk to like kind of process and debrief a little bit, you know. It's a lot to think about. It's really frustrating, but for the right reasons. The whole idea of those meetings is you need to go in there with 3 questions that are big enough to tank your entire business model if you get the wrong answer. And then make sure you don't lead them into giving you the right answer. So, All right, I'm back. I've been back for a while though. I've got some thinking to do. I've got some planning and stuff. A lot of it is like trying to figure out how much to take away from that meeting, of whether or not, like, obviously it's only one meeting, right? It's only one meeting. Arguably you want at least 2 before you completely upend everything. But but it's like leaning me in a direction that I was kind of expecting. Like I've been like, what to do. I'm gonna level with you guys. Am I job my head today? I got rocked yesterday a bit, and I've been struggling to like kind of figure out what I'm gonna do. You know, I feel like in that meeting I basically confirmed all of the things that part of me had already started to realise. Like, I've had effectively 2 failed hypotheses, initial hypotheses, one failed, but then the other one is like, I haven't aggressively pushed enough to know whether or not it failed. The lack of momentum I've got, the capabilities I know that the platform I'm building has, versus where I want it to be, versus where it needs to be, and like, in general, what companies want and do and how they act. That meeting kind of confirmed a lot of kind of negative thoughts I had around that. And it's almost confirmed that it's not going to work. Like the project is not going to where it currently is. The mistake I made was I took an idea that works for a niche set of people and then tried to build it in a way where it could be applied to less niche people. because I assumed that if there was a niche, a market for up here, I could apply that market to a bigger market, which I couldn't do. But also I did that because it's easier to build it for that market. Like, I don't think I have the expertise to build it for that niche. I wouldn't be where I am today if I aimed for that. And almost that mistake, that like assumption, has almost made it so that I've built something for a market that doesn't exist, and I can't even easily pivot it towards a market that does exist. So it kind of leaves me in a position where I'm like, what is my plan now? I need to figure out what it is I like doing, what it is obviously I could continue. I'm in a position where I kind of think, I've got a couple of other meetings planned, but I kind of think RadSpider is a little bit dead on arrival. I'm spending my day today figuring out how to use container instances in Azure. That is my current go-to plan. I panicked a little bit because I searched for it in Azure and I couldn't find it. I could only find the Kubernetes service. And I'm like, I don't want or need Kubernetes. Like, Kubernetes is the absolute opposite of what I want. What I want is to rapidly spin up a container and burn it the fuck down. I'm not hosting anything for a long period of time. It's literally spin, burn, spin, burn. And I'm now reading into kind of how that works in Azure, how you can programmatically trigger it and monitor it and all that stuff. That's where I'm at. I'm having fun as well, boys. Taking a little bit of time. Well, I might like send a LinkedIn message to someone later, but I'm like delaying the emails and stuff for today. I'm just having fun, like investigating something new, you know? That's where I'm at. That's where my mindset's at today. It's what I want to do. I'm gonna hit next week a bit harder, a lot harder. I'm kind of gonna take this weekend to recover a little bit and figure out a game plan. I vaguely have a game plan, but I want to know. I want like a proper one, you know, not a ad hoc one. So we're not looking great at the moment. I can't get the instances to host a Docker and Docker file because the way that works. So basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to utilize Docker build to isolate where the code is. So all of the analysis I'm doing, in theory, I don't have control over the code that I'm running in that area. And I want to make sure that it doesn't have access to anything weird. So I'm using a multi-stage Docker build to effectively isolate and run everything I need. So I'll pull in all the dependencies I need into the Docker build, into the Docker image at that build, run the analysis, and then it steps back into a higher level where it's got more privileges, and then it's able to export all of that data into other areas in Azure. But to do that, the way Docker and Docker works is a bit of a hack. You have to run it either in privileged mode or in like, you have to connect a volume that has access to the Docker socket. And you can't do that in Azure containers. So I'm having to read around, trying to figure out how that works. It's weird because I'm trying to use a container to do builds. And I think Microsoft would prefer you to use your container registry. And I could do that. That is an option. But it's more expensive, which is why they don't want you to do it, boys. The way that they do the management of the Docker stuff basically means that they almost don't want you to do it because otherwise they won't be able to add in all the other features. They've kind of had to turn off a couple of things so that they can have these really fast, rapid creation of stuff, you know. The problem with the Azure Container Registry is it doesn't scale at the same rate as these. Like, I could spin up 1 million of these containers relatively quickly, but like the container registry, if I remember correctly, maybe misquote myself here, but that is basically running on a VM effectively. Could try to like hack it into an Azure function, because what I effectively want is the scale of serverless to do builds. I don't want to have to basically sit in a queue or run a massive bloody, what is this? Let's have a look at what this is built on. Oh no, I remember it's got like a weird pricing model. The container registry, let's just have a look at registry. Yeah, so like you can't scale the speed of it. Like you can scale the size of it because it's not, like it does the builds, but it's not designed for like rapid building. All you could do is scale the storage. What I effectively want to do is build a lot of containers quickly. And I can build Docker files inside a Docker container, and I can spin up Docker containers really quickly, but I can't spin those Docker containers up on the Azure CLI. In Azure container instances. I feel like I need to go back to the drawing board with this, boys. I kind of assumed that would just work. As soon as, because I've sampled it, I've got it running like on my computer. As soon as I saw that I had to do a -v and attach a volume to it, I was like, ah, fuck. So I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that I feel like I'm gonna be boxed in now into having to run some of this on VMs. I wanted to avoid that. I like the idea of it being more or less entirely, basically the entire app is, what's it called? PaaS, right? It doesn't require anything from machines. Everything is hosted on the cloud. Like it is lightweight as fuck, right? There is no like machine management or anything like that. It's all just permission management in the cloud. Happy days. Easy. Running otherwise is just a bit more of a faff. You've obviously got to keep machines up to date. It costs money to run VMs. I mean, I have a VM running that's hosting my websites at the moment, but they're quite lightweight. Like it's a diddy little thing. So either way, I feel like I'm going to have to run some kind of VM that has access to all of this stuff. So I could run Docker on a computer in a VM, and then I have full access to that, and then I can basically write a little application that will sit there and just spin up threads. And then it's just a case of managing messages from a message bus, which is what I had as your function. So I had a function that would spin up a container, and then the container would then build the stuff. That was what I was originally planning. What if I have now effectively, I could even run a function on my own machine if I really wanted to, but I effectively write a machine that sits and listens to messages from a bus and then queues them onto that machine itself. Do I run that on a VM? There's Atlas, man. There's old Atlas. The original, the OG. She still works. Could do it on that. I wonder how quick a Raspberry Pi is. Like, I don't need Grunt. I especially don't need it at the moment because the cheaper this thing is, the better. Let me tell you that. But I wonder, I should have a Raspberry Pi floating around somewhere. Or I could boot Atlas. Obviously Atlas is a lot more powerful than a Raspberry Pi would be. But it's got full fat Windows on it and stuff, and I'd have to strip it down a bit more than I'd like to. Or do I just start paying for a fucking VM? To host a machine like Atlas in the cloud will cost me $500 a month. Sounds like a lot. Won't cost me that much to have it running down here in this little corner or over there. And it'll keep this room warmer. But like having Atlas or a computer, having a computer in the house connected to the internet and constantly running is a bit of a pain in the ass. I'm just trying to see if I've got a Raspberry Pi floating about, to be honest. Tracked down my old Raspberry Pis, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with Atlas. I kept Atlas around because I knew it would make a good server. And maybe I could just install Linux on it and then roll with it. But I've also got these as well. What I might do is, I don't know, it's lunchtime. Let's think about it. Also, don't you notice, look how like yellow the top is compared to the sides? How weird that is, man. So, if I want to, I figured out now, I've read this thing rather than just kind of skim to the bottom. What's throwing me is, this is the first thing I've done that actually has a dependency on something local to it. So everything else I've done is just an exe. Like, it doesn't even need the .NET framework because it's included in the exe itself. Like, everything is just literally, you run it, it's self-contained, it'll run anywhere. Yeah, just check that, whether or not it would run on Windows versus Linux, the same compiler, but I believe it will. Because all of its dependencies are available over the net. But Docker in Docker doesn't work like that. If you were to spin up a Docker container that wasn't in privileged mode, i.e. the ones that are in Azure CI, they need to have access to the Docker instance of the machine that's running the container, and then it spawns sister containers, not child containers. Does that make sense? So effectively, this one will spin up another one here, rather than going, this one will spin up one underneath it, which would spin up one underneath it. It would go bang, 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 all at the same level, right? So there isn't a hierarchy, it's just interacting with Docker above it in order to do the stuff it needs to do. That's not necessarily what I wanted. So the solutions around it are, effectively, figure out a way to always have, without using Docker, always have Docker installed wherever this is going to be run. So obviously Atlas, it will always run. My laptop, it would always run because I've obviously got Docker installed. Any dev environment, it would be fine. But how would I do that in the cloud? Would I have that on a VM where Docker is installed? I could obviously put it on a server where Docker is installed, but I need to be able to get Docker installed on it. Yeah. So my options are, effectively, figure out a way of two things. I could either figure out a way of three things. Figure out a way of hosting that environment, whether or not that's on some local hardware that I make whatever. And then part two of that is figure out a way to trigger it like an Azure function, i.e. put a message on a bus, takes a message off the bus, does something, and can scale itself. So like that thing itself wants to be able to scale in a sense that, so maybe I have an Azure function that does something over here that kicks off something on a VM, which then spits off all of these containers, right? But I need to be able to figure out both how to start it and how to host it as two separate things. Or I figure out a different way of doing this that doesn't involve using Docker build. So I want to use something similar to Docker build where I can spawn an environment, where I've got everything I need. I don't think there is a solution to that. I'm just going to need a VM with Docker on it. That's the easiest solution, isn't it? Let's be honest, Jamie. Is it an easy solution? Yeah. I've looked at hosting these things in Service Fabric. I'm using Service Fabric locally to test everything and run everything. So in theory, running it in there would be great because I don't have to worry about a second thing. In theory, that's fine. It means any node that has... Yeah, because basically my whole app is running on, effectively, VMs underneath. Oh boy. Right, so I actually do think that we can run this the way I want to run it. So in Service Fabric, you can specify different node types. So I could have node type 1, which is the primary node that runs all of the microservices. And I can have a node type 2, which has Docker installed, which can then be used to scale the what's-my-jigs. And I get all of the scaling that I need from Service Fabric will basically be sitting and managing Docker for me. I said earlier today, is there no point in Kubernetes? Does Kubernetes get me around this? It does. Because, do you like these little, I start talking to you and then I go, oh, and then I go away, then come back and talk about something else. So I've been looking into it while I've been like downloading like an Ubuntu to boot up on old Atlas. I also told you to shut down, but you apparently are still on. It doesn't look like shut down does jack shit. This computer is so decrepit, man. So yeah, I've been looking into how like the best route of attack is going to be. At the end of the day, as much as it's a lot of good fun to have my own server, I'll be able to make it a build agent, and I won't have to make sure I've always got a computer running, which I don't actually do. But there'll be times when I'll check something in from my laptop and turn my laptop off and it'll break the build because my laptop is the build agent, because I forget. That's all sorted. Whoa, words. So the logistics of getting it working on that machine, while it's easy to just install Docker and then run from there, actually kicking everything off, i.e. putting it inside something like that, either a function or some kind of service that sits and listens to the message bus and kicks off another process, like those steps of complexity make it not really worth it. So what I'm actually going to do is investigate adding the functionality that I'm trying to add here into the snapshot image. It will make the snapshot builds slower in general. Well, it won't actually, because it will just be effectively adding a PowerShell script or a bash script, it'll be a bash script, into the snapshot image, and then being able to go say like -m, and then it will run this type of analysis, or -s, and it will run this type of analysis. And we'll be able to roll it off like that. I feel like that is going to be much better because I have the advantage of already having the script that I need, the pipeline script. I already have all the dependencies because they're already in the snapshot image. Half of the complexity I had was like I needed to make sure that this analysis is run with the dependencies that will allow the pipeline script to run. But I think I'm there now. I think I've figured it out. So this like little bit of excitement I had in here, booting up old Atlas and getting up a monitor and stuff, actually unnecessary, because I'm just going to translate what I was previously doing as a build. Right, yeah, so the disadvantage of this method, I forgot about that. Damn it! maybe I know. The disadvantage is the snapshot image doesn't have access to blob storage. So downloading the information it needs and uploading the results isn't going to work unless I add the Azure CLI into all snapshots. Which doesn't sound nice. Could make it FML, man, this bloody pain in the ass. Because yeah, like I'm giving that process access to all that information, which is the big advantage of using build instead of standard. Because I effectively want to run it in a sandbox. Run the analysis in a sandbox just in case. Fuck. There are two complicated problems to solve. One is triggering the service, the build on that machine. That's problem number one. Or, conversely, the other problem I can solve is doing it without using the safety of a build and doing it safely. I mean, all it has access to is blob storage, but it's got write access to blob storage and the Azure Container Registry. I don't know why I call the Azure Container Registry the Azure Container Registry, but yeah, I call blob storage blob storage. I don't call it blob storage. I don't call it Azure blob storage. Fucking hell, man. So one of them is a security concern, but quicker. The other one is like an infrastructure concern, adds extra levels of complexity to the hosting, but is arguably more correct. So it is less scalable. Right then, boys, let's call it a day. So I've been looking into it, I've been like researching my options. Basically, I think that I didn't want to do it because I like, to be honest with you, I don't want the hassle of hosting a machine here. I also don't really want the hassle of paying for one in Azure either, so there's that too. I thought about like seeing whether or not I could balance it on one in Azure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how to host, well, I'm going to make sure this works first, is I'm going to figure out how to spin up Azure functions in a container, which then spins up Docker in a container. Yeah, which then, no, Azure functions, which then spins up PowerShell functions, which then spins up Docker. Sorry, PowerShell, Docker, and then moves on. So I'm going 3 deep. I know I can do 1 deep. Can I do 3 deep? So I'm going to try that out on Atlas before I go crazy, making this thing work on other machines. And then once I'm happy that works, I'm going to put it onto Atlas in there and get it rolling. And then at least we have one machine that can spin up multiple containers. That's the plan of attack there. Might have to do a little bit of work to throttle it because it is one machine and I can't just scale to 100 and then scale back down again. But yeah, so that's good. We're happy with that. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, oh, it might be, I wonder if I could do something with mass transit actually, throttle them going into mass transit. No, because then, no, ignore me. But yeah, so otherwise, sounds like fun. Sounds like we've got a plan. But I'm going to end the video here, ladies and gentlemen, because it's a really long one. We have an interesting weekend up ahead of us. I know the weekends usually aren't interesting for us, but this one is interesting. I don't even know what's going to happen in it. Bonkers. So yeah, I'm going to say thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later.